It's very common for the stories told in films to get revised and changed throughout their production, sometimes quite drastically. Dreamworks' 2002 Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron is no exception. There are several scenes and storylines that were dramatically changed or cut out from the film entirely. Unfortunately, there is not a lot of public information about these scenes outside of concept art and a post from an animator on the Animation Guild blog. Despite this, these images and info will give you an idea of 5 scenes and storylines from Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron that never made it on screen. While the final version of Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron tells the story of a Mustang that can never be tamed, earlier versions depicted the stallion being tamed not just once, but multiple times. According to Kevin Koch on the Animation Guild blog, originally Spirit descended through the stages of horse hell, continually escaping and being recaptured, each time ending up somewhere worse. The human world was to be a disorienting nightmare for the wild horse. Concept art for these scenes depicts Spirit in a very bleak, developing town. Based on this quote and concept art, Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron was originally going to be a story in a very similar vein to Anna Swell's Black Beauty, depicting the life of a horse from owner to owner, also similar to the story Warhorse by Michael Morpurgo. Perhaps it's partially because of the similarity to these previous well-known horse stories that the filmmakers worked on developing the film story into something that was more unique, although the main reason the original story was changed will be covered shortly. The post continues on to say that Spirit would eventually end up in a mine, sentenced to work until he died, without ever seeing the light of day again. The concept art for these scenes is even bleaker than the previous ones. The mining town Spirit is in is full of smokestacks, and the underground mines are dark and claustrophobic. This is probably the low point in the original story, paralleling the final film scene of Spirit being loaded into the train car. We can see ideas from this mine concept art get transferred into that scene in the final film. Spirit and another horse are standing together with 3 other horses nearby, much like in the train car scene. AnimationSource.org claims this is of Spirit and some other horses getting stuck in the mine, and though the others lose hope, Spirit does not give up and tries to cheer them up by telling them about his homeland. Kevin on the Tag blog discusses another scene that follows this original story, but before we cover that, he also noted the reason why the original story of Spirit was changed rather dramatically. Ultimately, the story was judged to be simply too painful to watch, and people in the studio began to refer to it as Schindler's Horse. There was a sardonic playfulness to that tag, but the original version of the film would have been as dark and heart-rendering as Schindler's List. I think that version would have been a better film, but I also think it would have scared everyone away from the box office. What do you think about this original story for Spirit? Would you have liked to see darker sides of the original story played out on screen? Or are you glad they did away with those concepts? After the depressing scenes in the mines, one last escape would land Spirit in the middle of a forest fire, where a frontiersman would help him, the first human to treat him with kindness and the first human to be allowed on his back. This scene does sound similar to what we get in the final movie, but with one major difference being that it is not the Lakota Little Creek that's saving Spirit, but a frontiersman character who appears to have some presence throughout the original story based on some various concept art. This frontiersman is depicted in these panels saving Spirit from the fire, much like Little Creek does in the final film. He frees Spirit's chain from getting caught on a log, then the pair end up having to jump into the water to escape the out-of-control forest fire. In the final film, Spirit's main antagonist is the Colonel, who sets out to break Spirit. However, he ends up unsuccessful despite his many valiant efforts. Spirit cannot be tamed. It is quite a shock then to discover that a possible storyline in the film was for the Colonel to successfully break Spirit, and then use him as his mount. Concept art shows that perhaps he gets Spirit to this point through methods even harsher than what we see in the final film. It's strange now to see this iconic Mustang, tacked up in full cavalry gear, being ridden by his arch nemesis. In another piece of concept art, we see there was also the story idea of Spirit being successfully branded with a US brand on his shoulder. Early on in the film, Spirit's strength and leadership over his herd is depicted through him warding off a mountain lion trying to attack twin foals. However, in earlier concepts, Spirit is depicted fighting off other animals from a foal. One of these ideas is him fighting off a coyote in a desert setting, and the other is him fighting off a rattlesnake in a setting that's more lush and green, similar to the homeland we've come to know. Other animals aren't the only ones Spirit could have been fighting off. In one piece of concept art, Spirit is depicted fighting another stallion with his herd off in the distance. Perhaps this is Spirit proving his worth by fighting off a bachelor stallion and holding his place as leader of the herd. I discovered this final deleted scene through only one visual storyboard with no additional information on it. It is unclear of when this takes place or what exact dialogue is happening during this scene. This scene very well could be an alternate scene that could have taken place at any time during the film, but I could also see this as being a deleted scene that was closer to being actually in the film, based on how finalized Spirit and Rain's designs seem to be. Based on the detail that Rain does not have her feather in her mane, it's possible that this scene was to be of when Spirit and Rain were returning to homeland after they said their goodbye to Little Creek, although it's also possible that Rain's feather was just not added in these storyboards, or it was something that they didn't finalize until later on in production. But let's actually go through this storyboard. In the first panels, we see Spirit and Rain looking at something, then they exchange looks. What they're looking at is a young kid in a cowboy hat. The kid looks behind as his father calls to him from their camp. The kid and his dog head back to the camp of wagons. Spirit watches him and the dog approach a pen of horses. The kid excitedly tells his father about the two Mustangs he just saw. It is very unclear here of what his father, if this man is even his father, says in response, but in the background of the final panels you can see two men getting on their horses, ready to ride out. And unfortunately that is all we have of that storyboard. What's especially interesting about this storyboard is that this man looks similar to two different characters in the movie. First being that of one of the rustlers that captured Spirit in the final film, but perhaps what is more likely is that this is actually the Colonel. Now this man doesn't look like the Colonel in the final film, but if you compare him to the storyboards of the canyon scene in Spirit, you can see they are very strikingly similar. The character of the Colonel also had a lot of changes throughout the production. He wasn't even planned in certain scenes of the film where we see him today. Perhaps this additional scene was supposed to have the same kind of energy of when the Colonel leaves Spirit and Little Creek alone at the canyon and they part ways in the final film. It is also possible that this scene takes place at the end of Spirit after they've already returned to homeland. Either way, I can imagine this scene being about the Colonel and Spirit sharing some kind of mutual respect for one another. They see each other with their family, and they let each other live out in peace. I also can't help but wonder if there was supposed to be some kind of borderline cheesy line that he says to this kid about how that's a Mustang that can never be tamed. Again, this is just speculation based on the visual storyboard, and I'd love to hear your own theories and speculations in the comments on what you think is going on in this scene, or what you think was supposed to happen next in the following panels in this storyboard. Thank you for watching. I hope you found these deleted scenes and story concepts interesting. I don't think these are very well known, as I didn't even find out about them until several months ago. Again, I'd love to hear all your thoughts and theories in the comments below about these alternate storylines and scenes that could have been in Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron. If you want more Spirit videos, check out my Spirit playlist in the description down below, or at the end of this video. It contains all my videos about Spirit and Spirit Riding Free. If you would like to see more videos about Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron, let me know by leaving this video a like. And if you don't want to miss out on any future videos I do about this film, subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified of the latest uploads. I hope you have an awesome day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye everyone!